Momoshiki Otsustuki was Boruto's first antagonist, at least when it comes to the manga. His grand plan was to take the chakra of the tail beast and then use it to cultivate his many divine trees. This process was of course different from what we've seen before, as it didn't require the use of an actual 10 tails. Now this didn't end up happening since Momoshiki lost his battle against Naruto, Sasuke, and Boruto, which then spawned a theory that Momoshiki planned for this to happen, but is that really true? Well, the answer to this is a bit more nuanced. You see, this all stems from the fact that people find it hard to believe that this version of Boruto himself at the tender age of 12, was able to defeat this evolved version of Momoshiki. On one hand, you have people who use it to downscale Momoshiki to absolute father levels, while on the other hand, you have people who use it to upscale Momoshiki's intelligence by saying that he allowed it to happen so he could gain access to Boruto's body. Then of course you have the ones who believe that Boruto is simply poorly written and the power scaling doesn't make sense. Now what people need to understand is that it's not that the power scaling doesn't make sense, it's more so that Momoshiki isn't as strong as people thought he was, and the opposite is true for the people that fought him. You see, what people need to consider is that the Naruto that fought fused Momoshiki is nowhere near full power himself. We have to remember that even before the fight began, Naruto used a lot of his and Kurama's chakra to contain the attack at the stadium so that the villagers wouldn't get hurt. Yes, while in 6-bar stage mode, Naruto is using both his and Kurama's chakra, even in the avatar state. So after expelling that much chakra to contain the blast itself, a blast he could have easily countered as stated by Sasuke himself, Naruto was knocked unconscious. Mind you, this is an attack created by the 8 tails chakra Momoshiki stole and then amplified, and not necessarily something he can create all the time. Momoshiki then proceeded to absorb Kurama's chakra for hours after the battle since Naruto was resisting. This added to his fatigue since we know extracting a tail beast can lead to the user's death since it reduces their life force and causes physical strain to their bodies, thus Naruto crying out in pain. This was made clear since Naruto could barely stand and was barely conscious when Sasuke saved him. We also have to know that Momoshiki absorbed over 50% of Kurama's chakra that was remaining after they tanked the attack at the exams, which simply means that the Naruto that fought fused Momoshiki was heavily fatigued and had less than 50% of Kurama's chakra. Yes, not 50%, less than 50 since he already expended a lot of Kurama's chakra to contain the attack at the stadium. Yet for some reason Naruto was still able to go toe-to-toe with Momoshiki in the anime and won their brief 1v1 tussle, while Momoshiki got absolutely demolished by Naruto in the manga version of the fight. Now, base Naruto was also able to block, dodge and outright react to fuse Momoshiki's attacks in the manga, which was somewhat toned down in the anime adaptation where Momoshiki outshined him. Though I think it is important to note that fused Momoshiki obviously isn't using full power against this version of Naruto since he was able to contend with a far stronger version of him. Also, Momoshiki did slam the Kurama avatar, but that was a less than 50% Kurama, so it means nothing to a hypothetical full power Naruto. Now, you could also make the argument that fused Momoshiki wasn't at full power since base Momoshiki spammed a lot of his chakra at the Chunin exams, and Kinshiki was also in a weakened state before they fused. So theoretically, we also haven't seen a full power version of fused Momoshiki. Now, the main issue with the Momoshiki being weakened argument is that Momoshiki still got beaten even after healing his body using the chakra taken from the scientific ninja tool and also consuming the chakra pills he created using half of Kurama's remaining chakra. Now, none of this really matters since we only need that version of Momoshiki to ascertain his mindset and see if he actually planned to lose. We know he has the ability to see the future, or a future, which we're going to come back to later on. So it is possible that he saw the future where he gives Boruto the karma seal and takes over his body. I mean, there's this one instance where he seemingly looks at Boruto with his Byakugan and says, "You seem to be shouldering an interesting fate," which implies that he saw what happens to Boruto. Now, it is important to note that Momoshiki doesn't see the future in its entirety. This is implied in chapter 75 when he said that Boruto saw the same fragments of the future that he was able to see. He refers to them as a tableau, which is a group of models or motionless figures representing a scene from a story or from history. There's also the fact that Momoshiki outright says that he can't see his own fate, which means that whatever future he saw when he looked at Boruto couldn't have shown him that he took over Boruto's body with karma. That would simply be a blatant contradiction. Even the future that he peered into about Boruto losing everything didn't show Momoshiki as being a part of that future, which is why it goes on to say that even he doesn't know why that happens. All he knows is that he saw a future where everyone turns against Boruto, which he wanted to use against him to take over Boruto's body after he despairs. I mean, it is blatantly obvious that Momoshiki doesn't see the future in detail, since even back in chapter 75, he was confused about what Ada's Shinjutsu was, which he later came to realize was omnipotence. So if Momoshiki can see the future in detail, why wouldn't he know why Boruto loses everything? Why wouldn't he have known that Ada has omnipotence? Why was he surprised that they were able to defeat Ishiki? Why was he surprised that Boruto's clone was a decoy to land his Rasengan? There's also the fact that in the moment that Momoshiki perished, he was trying to overpower Boruto's Rasengan and simply failed to do so. I mean, his own dialogue in the moment was that, "This can't be me defeated." And no, he didn't say that to trick them, since he whispered it to himself in the middle of a roaring Rasengan destroying the environment. Absolutely no one heard him say this, nor did he intend them to do so, given the fact that he whispered. Now there is this other contingent who doesn't believe that Momoshiki planned this because he saw the future, but more so because he saw Boruto's Jogan. Now aside from the fact that this clearly doesn't make sense for the manga, since Boruto never used the Jogan in that fight, why would Momoshiki need to do any of this to get Boruto's Jogan? People fail to realize this, but implanting a karma seal doesn't require the death of the Otsustuki. He could have implanted the karma similar to what Jigen did to Kawaki or Ishiki did to Jigen. Both of those things happened while the Otsustuki was still alive. He could have then simply went on about his business and allowed it to extract over time, or he could have abducted Boruto and imprisoned him in some other dimension while that happened. He didn't need to die to get the Jogan. In fact, him dying makes it less likely, since he doesn't have control over the vessel, and Boruto can literally die at any point in time, thus also killing Momoshiki as well. So I just refuse to believe that Momoshiki is that low IQ to the point where he thought this was a better plan. I would much rather believe that he simply lost and Boruto was the person closest to him, which is why he planted the karma seal. So from a power scaling perspective, it does make sense that Momoshiki was overpowered by the Rasengan Naruto gave to Boruto. Naruto's attack potency is simply greater than that of Momoshiki's, even in his weakened state, if it's concentrated into a single attack such as the Rasengan. Boruto was of course amped to some degree as well, since the power passed through his body to amp the Rasengan. So you then combine that with Boruto's own power and you get the scene where Boruto is damaged by the attack itself, but he then has the strength to win the clash, thus destroying Momoshiki. Now some will still argue that Momoshiki was playing 5D chess, and this once again stems from his ability to see the future. Though as I pointed out earlier, Momoshiki only sees bits of the future, and he also can't see his own future, which makes the ability a tad bit limited. There's also the fact that Momoshiki doesn't understand how the future works. You see, I had this conversation the other day with another Boruto content creator called Mello. You guys can go check him out, of course. But we pretty much discussed the differences between how Amado and Momoshiki operates. He believes that Amado makes a lot of assumptions absent of evidence, so you can't really believe what he says, whereas Momoshiki is a bit more informed since he sees what he believes. This stems from Amado assuming that Ada's charm ability was a Shinjutsu acquired from Shibai cells, when it was instead a manifestation of omnipotence, which is the ability she did receive from Shibai. Now I did disagree with this, because Amado didn't just assume that the charm ability was Shibai's just because. He came to that conclusion based on the other experiments he conducted, where the cyborgs awakened a new ability after receiving Shibai's cells. So it is in fact logical to come to the conclusion that the ability Ada awakened after being implanted with those same cells also came from those cells, thus not being a baseless assumption. The same thing applies to Momoshiki as well. He saw bits of the future and assumed that it was definitely going to happen, thus him crashing out in chapter 80 when Boruto didn't succumb to his despair. Now the reason why that happened is because Momoshiki simply doesn't understand the mechanic of how the future works in this universe. You see, Koji himself explained it in chapter 16. The more people know the future, the more the nature of that future changes. So once you know the future, you can no longer act the same as before you knew it. It will instead branch in complex ways, making it even more difficult to predict, to the point of negating the advantage of foreseeing the future. He even went as far as saying that to know the future leads to the act of destroying it. So in a sense, Momoshiki knowing the future already changes the future. And he then went and told Boruto about the future multiple times, which means that more people now know that future, which of course leads to the future changing even more. So why would Momoshiki do this? Why would he continue to interfere by trying to abduct Kawaki after the Ishiki fight, or trying to kill Naruto during the code fight? By the way, we can't even say that he saw that he was supposed to do those things, because he himself said that he's surprised that they were able to defeat Ishiki, which is what then allowed him to do what he did. And again, Momoshiki can't see his own fate, so how would he have seen that he was supposed to do this? It doesn't make sense. So it is pretty obvious that Momoshiki was just acting in the moment, and if that's the case, he clearly doesn't understand how the future works. If he did, he wouldn't be doing things that aids in destroying the future that he saw, unless of course he's stupid, or he's that stupid, which doesn't appear to be the case since he's portrayed as knowledgeable. This is also a problem in and of itself, since Momoshiki claims to know every Shinjutsu, which should include prescience. So if Momoshiki knows what prescience is, which is the ability to see all possible futures, why wouldn't he know that multiple possible futures exist? He shouldn't be surprised then that the future could change, or that another future could manifest based on him knowing about it or telling Boruto about it. Yet he was for some reason. So it does seem like Momoshiki knows of prescience, but he doesn't really understand how the future itself functions, which would explain why he did the things that he did. So when someone says that Momoshiki is playing 5D chess and he planned his death because he saw a future that couldn't have possibly been shown to him, since he himself said that he can't see his own fate, nor did he do it for Joga, and he could have easily gotten without needing to die, which puts him at the mercy of humans until he's able to resurrect. All of this doesn't make sense, and would only make sense if you assume that Momoshiki is the most low IQ character in the history of fiction itself, which I don't think is the case. So, do I think Momoshiki planned his death? The answer is no, 100%. That did not happen. He simply lost, and that is okay. If that's it, guys, let me know your thoughts down below, and also drop a like if you liked it, and subscribe to me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.